Welcome to another commentary video on Monogatari Off and Monster season. Let's dive into the analysis. First, I want to note how it's been reinforced yet again that Shinobu's and Araragi's relationship is probably the single one that Araragi can't be without in his life. I'm not just talking about in terms of plot either. Having Araragi meet Acerola gives another opportunity to parallel his and Shinobu's circumstances. His soul was sent to hell, her soul was sent to heaven. As humans, their lives are 600 years apart, yet somehow they seem fated to truly live on only after finding each other, as they are now in the present day. Now for the Shinobu mustard of it all. Nishio Ishin really goes all out with the food metaphors from here. And it really begins with Princess Acerola's and Araragi's conversation in heaven. Something that Araragi has had to grapple with since the beginning of his story is whether or not what he did, saving a vampire and allowing her to feed as a vampire, was right or wrong. This dilemma weighed so heavy on his conscience because of his tendency to take on all of the responsibility for everything that's happened to everyone around him. At first, he was angry at Kishat for eating guillotine cutter. But once all was said and done, he couldn't blame the vampire because it was simply in their nature to feed on humans. This is a key theme throughout the main series, in which the characters are allowed to grow and change, but the main protagonist's primary arc was learning to accept himself. Princess Acerola challenges this idea by pointing out that what Mr. Lion and Mr. Bear consumes may not always be so good for them. In fact, it is her blood that made it difficult for Deathopia to maintain her strength all these years later. She wouldn't even drink the blood from the blood pond hell to save her own life. Food being used as a metaphor here kind of points out how a fundamentalist perspective on life and people has its limits. It was appropriate for the teenage Araragi who was struggling with growing pains and trying to take on more than he could handle. He needed to learn to love himself. But when you're an adult, it's important to remember there are sometimes things worth doing to improve your circumstances. This is what needs to be applied in the immediate story to the girls' basketball club, who are enduring the club environment as it is, rather than making any effort to change it on their own. There's a danger to thinking that's just how things are. Another moment where the characters discuss diet is when Shinobu makes a case for how Deathopia cannot be the culprit that they're looking for. Some people eat to live, and others live to eat. Deathopia is definitely the latter. Then she has allowed herself to become so weak after not being able to consume anything that does not meet the high standards of her personal palate. In a way, she's like the anti-Hanekawa, who never seasoned anything and ate everything as it was. The Hanekawa back then had no standards, no preferences, and it made her into a monster who appeared perfect but was deeply unhappy, as well as unable to make others happy. But Deathopia shows the other side of that. Perhaps living to eat is also a problem when taken to the extreme. Indulging only in what you enjoy can leave your stomach empty at the end of the day, and then you might as well be dead and buried under a mountain. Just kidding. I do like, though, that this arc seems to be revisiting major themes in the original series and adding further nuance to those discussions. In any case, after Shinobu's defense of Deathopia, it seems they may have the wrong little girl. Further evidence suggests the same. Like how Mr. Lion and Mr. Bear cannot be held to human standards, there is a distinction between human and vampire behavior. In that way, the conversation between Princess Acerola and Araragi was a good preface for the incoming clues on the mummified girls' cases. First, there is the coded message that they keep uncovering. One even placed on a phone. Now, there is also an attempt to hide a body and delay detection. The culprit seems to be acting more like a human than a vampire, implying that while Deathopia really isn't qualified to be their primary suspect, no other known vampire probably is either. But I won't spoil the fun of figuring out the answer for yourself. That's it for the main analysis. Now, I just want to praise this episode as perhaps the best adapted one for this arc, even if it didn't have Cat Koyomin. One nice thing about the visual medium of anime is that they can flash quickly to cuts from the scenes in Zoku Owari Monogatari, where Araragi was first introduced to Princess Beauty. It very effectively and efficiently explained why she was wearing the Oni mask too. It also allowed for the cutting, witty remarks that don't get adapted into the dialogue of the show. And of course, it depicted in great detail to us the analogy of the shrine acting as a sort of immigration checkpoint that Deathopia had to enter through to visit her friend. Mayui's testimony or performance, take your pick, was also very cleverly done. I really loved the various methods of exposition they highlighted. The added laugh track to the Rakugo performance was very considerate of the staff and crew to include for her benefit. The juxtaposition of her cuteness and the laugh track with Deptopia's gruesome entrance also got a wry smile out of me. The new OP is interesting too, and I think I like it. The formatting really establishes the genre and tone of this arc. It was also surprising there were no lyrics and the music was not an upbeat pop song, but that links it more to the old school noir detective mysteries that it draws inspiration from. If anybody noticed direct references to any old media, let me know.